So yeah, Chris and Kate today are joining us for a wonderful session on ensuring lasting customers. Um, a little bit for me before we get going. So all attendees, all of you joining us today, you're automatically muted, so we can't hear anything at your end. If audio is available by computer or by phone, so if your internet connection drops out, there's a phone number in your email invite that should get you through to the audio, at least, of this event. If you have any questions, please ask them using the question and answer function at the bottom. That will keep the chat free and flowing for such important topics as Thanksgiving dishes, whilst we keep the questions to one side so we can answer them in an orderly fashion. The chat, of course, will be open. And finally, the question we get asked the most, we will be sending the recording via email. So if you do feel like you need to drop for whatever reason, we will follow up with this content very shortly. Before I pass over to Chris, just quickly, a little thing about Amelia, the company where I work. We are the smartest and easiest way to offer, manage, and sell activities online. So we are a recreation management platform that powers all your programs, your drop-ins, your facilities, your centers, etc. We try to make online self-service accessible to everyone so that people can better engage with your programs. We make operations easier for you. All those day-to-day tasks that sort of bog people down, we make them as easy as can be. And we do so by being a great partner for the Parks and Rec industry, right? We understand how you work. We like to think we do anyway. And we are dedicated to making sure that your journey with software is as painless as possible. But that is the last you'll hear from me on the topic. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about customer service. And with that, I'm going to pass you over to Chris. And Kate, you should be able to share your screen in a sec.
Thank you, Mike. I really do appreciate you guys putting this stuff together, and it gives me a great privilege to introduce Kate Meacham. I had the privilege of knowing Kate for 20 years now, and time has flown. And I've always been impressed with Kate when I first met her as a graduate student from West Virginia University. Over the course of the 20 years of really growing and developed into an outstanding Parks and Recreation professional who is always really looked at the service aspect, the customer service aspect of how we enhance the service. Kate's worked in Colorado as well as Texas, a couple places in Texas, in Indiana at Carmel Clay, a really great Parks and Recreation agency, and even in New Zealand. And so worldwide experience that Kate's going to bring us and kind of her thoughts about how we enhance the customer service. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate, and she'll be presenting. We'll have some dialogue, and also you guys get to interact too, and she'll explain that part too.
Yes. Well, welcome y'all. Thanks so much for joining us today. Actually, if you go to the chat, I threw in an attachment. It's a fillable form, kind of a Mad Lib style, that you can kind of follow along, take notes. Really what we want as an outcome today is for you to have some real tangible things that you can take away, start training with your team, start implementing tomorrow. Some more long range ones, but we'll kind of talk a little bit about, those short term easy wins and some of those kind of bigger achievements to look down the road at. So hopefully y'all can see my screen. If you want to go ahead and scan that QR code, we're going to have a couple interactive questions along the way. So we definitely want to hear feedback from y'all. So if you scan that, or you can just enter in that URL with the \H3YRS, we'll be able to interact with you as we go along. So, alrighty. So exceptional experience. Chris, when I think of exceptional experience, I think everybody thinks Disney right away. From the, piping in popcorn smells to, various things. But what's something you think about when you think about the exceptional company-wise?
No, I really think that, exceptional services, does the organization know me as a person, especially if I'm frequenting it, often and that type of stuff. And I kind of, we get into our routines, and there's a reason why we get into our routines, because we kind of like the service that we're being experienced, or we wouldn't go there. And many of you have been on the shows before. I always have a big gulp here, and there's a reason why I go to the same store, on the way to work and on the way back to work to get my large drinks, is because they're always nice. The store is clean. They always have Diet Coke. I'm a Diet Coke fiend, and it's and even to the standpoint of, hey, listen, hey, they even know me by name. I mean, that's how much I go in there. Hey, Chris, how you doing? And one of the guys is actually from Worcester, Massachusetts, and so I started coming in. I've always has a Red Sox hat on or something like that. We start talking Red Sox, start talking Celtics, and it just gives you that sense of place, not only experience but sense of place that you're welcome there. And I think those are some of just the small things that we can do at our centers. And yeah, Disney does a great job with placemaking on just scales that we'll just never be able to understand or comprehend. But it's those small things that I think really add up to that experience there.
Yeah. And that's really, it is those small things. And so it's, taking something like Disney, which just seems unattainable, will never be Disney, but hey, we can be Allen Parks and Rec, we can be the Woodlands, and what does that look like for you? So I actually was doing a little research on, what companies. I think of Chick-fil-A, I think of Disney, I think of, those sorts of places, but what do you actually think about as a benchmark for exceptional experience? So we want to hear from y'all. Put in the QR code and let us know what you think. But I was actually surprised. The number one, the 2025, the number one company is actually the UPS store, which I was kind of like, oh, I mean, yeah, it's a great experience, but I didn't expect them to be number one. But I think when I think about exceptional things, I'm benchmarking the consistency. I'm benchmarking, going above and beyond, all of that. So, really figuring out what is your benchmark, for your organization. I think a lot of times we think about, okay, yeah, oh, that's how we do things, or we want to be great. Okay, well, how do you define great? How do you define an exceptional experience? Communication, we were talking about this earlier, Chris. Communication is a huge one. Both internally with staff training to be sure they're communicating correct information to what we're actually pushing out to everybody. I think communication is a big one.
Oh, I like the follow the standard. We're going to hit some of that information there. One of the examples that I give, and my midday drink. So I have one in the morning, one when I go the midday drink, because I have Sonic right across the street from me. And one time they gave me a bag. It was the day before Valentine's Day, and they gave me a small bag of sweet tarts that says "To Chris and Robin." They actually know my wife's name too. That's really bad. But I just kind of sat there for about, maybe 5-10 minutes and going, wow, that is such something simple that, why
Mm-hmm.
are we doing that to really push the, exceptional, as you call it, experiences in our rec center? It doesn't need to be rec
Yeah.
center. It could be at the senior center. It could be you have a great skate park, teen center type of facility, Kate, up in Allen called the Station. That what are those things that we can learn from some of these folks that, yes, we can't do it at the Disney level, but there are things that we can do that are low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Doing a member Monday or, something like that, where for the consistency piece of it, it's like, hey, go find a sponsor, bring in smoothies on a Monday, that you hand out during a specific time. Or, we always talk about value add. How are you adding value to that membership or that program? That kids, basketball league sells out every time. Okay, well, how are you gonna beef it up? Well, we don't have to, we sell out. Maybe we partner somebody to get a basketball, that we hand out to all the kids, or, adding value to everything that we do.
But there's even value that you can add into that experience, even if you don't have the ability to get a sponsor and says, okay, now everybody's gonna get a free basketball because you've got a sponsor there. It could be something as simple as really looking at, hey, listen, if you're a returning customer, a returning participant, that you go a week before everybody else does. Okay. And many
Yep.
of us have had that resident versus non-resident. Residents get to register a week before the non-residents. Makes complete sense, right? Because we're largely a tax-based organization. But what about those people? We do it in camps, maybe the basketball programs, the arts and crafts programs, that, hey, listen, if you registered before, and that's why we have to have good programs like Amelia's and others to help us through that process. But that's all like, hey, listen, I'm wanted and I'm valued because I get an additional, which really costs you nothing, and also potentially can actually drive more sales to you because of that perceived value there as well.
Yeah, I have a hard, talking about kind of defining our excellence and establishing our baseline, kind of what you're saying there. For me is I never discount memberships at our facilities because I don't want to devalue the membership. But man, I'll hand out some free rentals left and right because that's a secondary spend that we're, getting people in. And oh, by the way, they're in this beautiful new facility. I'm now going to buy a membership, or I'm now going to upsell a base birthday party to the next level with it. So, I think we all have to really think about is how each of your agencies define excellence. What is your baseline? What's your non-negotiables? We talk a lot about non-negotiables. It's like these are our non-negotiables. We shall, all the shalls versus the mays. You shall do this, this, and this versus you may, to help exceed it, go up, but we don't go below the standard.
And I would go, many of you guys have probably watched the Bear show. And here's my non-negotiables. And we maybe not have to be as psychotic as him, but that's another level there. But it makes you think through. And one of the pet peeves of mine is, just saying no. Just saying no, where some of the staff will just say, oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. Well, why can't we do that? And one, should we do that? Yes or no? Okay. But why are we just saying no right off the bat? Is we need to make sure we're encouraging staff of saying no, and here is the explanation. Because too often we get staff just want to, check the lists off. I'm a management by sticky notes, did this, throw it in the trash can, I'm done. It's like, get it going. But there is value of that. And, we talked a little bit, in the pre-show, Kate, about, your maintenance guys and, the interactions that those folks have. What do you have there?
So we have, guest experience training that we developed in-house. Staff came together and they talked through like, what is guest experience? So develop video of like every person within the first week watches this. But then we've also, obviously, our maintenance guys are like, well, that doesn't pertain to me. I don't work in a facility. I don't do a program. So we actually developed something specific for the maintenance crews. And specific for lifeguards, or, like really defining what your expectations are for your various individuals. And so, the maintenance crews, if they're out in the park, they have a habit of putting on their, headphones and jumping on that mower and not hearing anything. Now you hear them, please stop, get off the mower, engage with them. If they have a question, try to answer it. But some individuals, either English is a second language or they're just not comfortable. But that's an excuse. And we don't deal with excuses. So hand them a business card and say, I don't know that answer, but here, call this number, our main line. They'll be able to answer your question for you. Or trying to educate them on some basic questions and answers with it. But really developing training that appeals to all levels. And it's not just a one size fits all box approach. So.
One of the things too, Kate, that we didn't talk about was just, it's the word consistency. What type of experience that you're going to get, and you have a very complex system where you've got ice rinks, rec centers, parks, the skate center. I'm probably missing a couple of other of your facilities. Of what is the level of experience? And theoretically, the level of experience should be the same at the rec center as the senior center, as the ice rink, as whatever, in terms of how people are picking up the phone. How are they answering them? How many responses back? What is an acceptable 24-hour response for a phone message or an email, that type of stuff. I was doing some presentations with this group in Kansas. And that was one of their biggest struggles, to really ensure consistency, that everybody has the same experience. And we'll get to a reason why we want that consistency in that experience. But the baseline is so important. So everybody gets the same level of service, whether you're in quote unquote an affluent area or a poor area, whether you're in the brand new rec center or the older rec center or something like that. Is that consistency from that standpoint?
Yeah, we talk a lot about framing a box of like, we're not trying to control or dictate every facility. It's not a robot. That guest experience needs to be different if you're at a teen center versus a senior center. But there are non-negotiables. And so we expect we set the parameters of expectations, and then everything in the middle is kind of muddy. and tailored towards each of the different facilities. But to the point of consistency, getting a refund should be the same no matter where you go. Canceling a membership should be same no matter where you go. And making sure that it's simple. We don't need to ask somebody's name 5 times in the same form. We need to ask once. So going through, and we'll talk about auditing in a little bit, but going through and really being sure that that consistency is there.
You make a great point there, and one of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about if we're giving refunds or if we're doing some of those processes, who needs to approve them, and also who's got the ability to approve those types of things. And you said it a little bit, which kind of jarred my memory here, is if somebody gets pissed off about a pavilion reservation and says, oh, the pavilion wasn't clean, or the group before me left a mess and we didn't clean it up or whatever, it's like, hey, listen, that's a $20 charge. Okay, I'm going to write off that charge. I'm going to make that resident happy. And so, as we all know, the people who are happy are going to talk 5, 6 times versus negative 25, 30 times. Okay.
Yep.
And I've got to have those consistent experiences, and that $20 at the end of the day is not going to kill me, but that can be made at a level at that front desk or that first line.
Absolutely.
Give that, because I've been in systems, excuse me, I've spoken in systems where people are like, oh, well, the director of Parks and Recreation needs to do that. I'm like, that's 7 layers. And do you think the director of Parks and Recreation wants to deal with a $20 reservation? And first of all, the director should just say, yes, go ahead. Yeah. But, time, if we can be more responsive, where that receptionist or that person right behind that receptionist is saying, yeah, go ahead. The resident, the customer, whatever, the consumer is another one of my favorite words, is feels more empowered, feels like a higher level of satisfaction as well.
We talk a lot about 95.5 in our agency. And so are we making rules for the 5%, or are we making rules for the 95? And a lot of times when it comes to refunds, it's for the 5. Like, if somebody's going to find a loophole, they're going to find a loophole. Let it go. If they beat the system, okay, it's fine. That's part of that 5%. Design the process for the 95%. We'll deal with the 5% on the side in a different way, but the front desk should be able to cancel a membership. They should be able to refund somebody who's upset about a program. Again, because 95% of the time it's deserved, and they need the refund to recoup them to come back for another program.
Yeah, you're on the 95.5, I'm on the 99.1 concept. And my statement, and then the staff will come back to me, well, what if everybody does it? I'm like, they're not going to do that. Not everybody's going to do this. And yes, if a couple more people find the loophole, so what?
Exactly.
Moving on, because we will get, and part of the issue is really laying the groundwork and seeing the groundwork of how you act, which will pay dividends in the long run. And we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah. So next question we have is, if we ask your staff to define excellence, or what excellence meant in your organization, what would they tell us? It's kind of one of those things that's like, well, of course we're excellent. Of course we have great customer service. Well, how do you actually define it? Like, what's the why? What's the, that deeper layer is, if people don't know how you define excellence, then you probably need to kind of tighten that up to be sure everybody's on that same page.
Well, I think while people are kind of chiming in here, that excellence is doing the things that people don't see when people aren't looking,
Yes.
type of thing. And I just had a flashback to when we were together in Colorado, and we were doing Easter egg hunts and all that type of stuff together at City Park. And I remembered, I don't know if it was your idea, my idea, Kevin's idea, whoever, but I think we had a staff member or a volunteer who had an extra basket of Easter eggs and saw a kid who didn't get any and was starting to cry, just throw some on the ground. That's that unexpected level of service, because on the surface, yeah, y'all go out there and get it, but it's things.
Yep.
The residents see, the customers see, and that draw people back. And I just saw something pop up, going above and beyond. Is going above and beyond, doing the extra little things.
Yeah, it really is the little things. Like we talk about Disney being so big, but it's about those little things and the little experiences and removing one extra step in a process. Or one of my pet peeves is I have an 8-year-old kiddo who is in all of our programs. And for a while there, for summer camp, like register for multiple weeks of summer camp, and I had to fill out the 6 forms every single week. I'm like, why? Why are we filling out 6? I haven't moved since last week. Uh, so we looked at that process to streamline and just verify. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor's office. Has your insurance changed? That kind of thing. Oh, you're good. Okay, don't worry about it. We don't need you to sign another waiver form for this one. We have the one waiver from the beginning of the summer. We're good. So looking at little things like that of just the paperwork side or the process side of things, and reducing down to be sure that it's convenient, easy, use your technology where you can.
And Kate, you make a really good point there about how you took your daughter to summer camp. And so you're consuming the programs
Mhm.
and services. So you're getting a direct understanding of what your customers are experiencing.
Yeah.
Because you're quote unquote no better than the average customer. And if you're
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, listen, why am I filling out this form over and over and over again?" Wow. Because
Yeah.
what we're also starting to really look at the same time is we're in competition. There are
Absolutely.
summer camps in Allen, Texas. There are so many summer camps in the Woodlands, Texas. Summer camps are just proliferated all over the country. How do we differentiate ourselves, and which will then be, based on we can differentiate ourselves on our registration process, and that's why we have great programs like Amelia and others out there to streamline those processes there. I see some other
Yeah.
work culturally relevant, positive atmosphere.
Yeah.
Pro-
And I think it goes that going above and beyond, kind of going back to that summer camp. It's, you have your basics, like the filling out the registration form 6 different times. But then on the other side of things, our camp's is always full. It's like, well, it's one of the cheaper ones too in the area. But we go to other summer camps and I'm like, oh, look at this, or oh, look at that. And so like last summer, I went to a camp where I just pulled up my car. The camp counselors came to the car, opened the door, grabbed my kid's backpack, and off they went. I was like, this is genius. And so my staff weren't happy that midsummer we adjusted and we added that. But again, it's those little things. Parents are running late. They're out of their normal school routine. Like if a camp counselor who's already there on the clock can walk to the car, get the kid out, and I don't even have to put it in park and go, like, oh, I'm going back.
we're,
Like,
we're doing that a little bit too with our summer camp, where they will have somebody and they will be at the portico or something like that. They will say, okay, it's little Susie. It's
yep.
little Susie. Susie will call into the lead in the gymnasium. Hey, Susie's mom and dad are here. And so never have to get out of that car. Again, one of the things that we see, especially service differentials of how we exceed customers' expectation is convenience. Are we saving
Mhm.
time? Are we creating a unique experience? Are we providing and enhancing value? All of those types of things, if you're starting to get 2, 3, 4 of those things in yours, you're going to hit that customer service experience.
Yep, absolutely. So we talked about defining excellence and figuring out like what is it exactly happening. But a lot of times, everybody has buzzwords and they want to, tie it back to a number and tell me how this, is helping our strategic plan and stuff like that. So there's 2 numbers here in Allen that we focus on. One is the percent of household dwellings. So that could be an apartment, a townhome, single family unit. That how many of dwellings, so we have 36,000 household dwellings here, population 115. And so it's great. My kiddo is in 20 different programs in, Allen Parks and Rec. That's fantastic. I mean, you want those repeat, rec rats who come time after time after time. But wouldn't it be great if I had 10 kids going to one program instead? And so we focus on making sure as we open a new rec center, first on the west side, we look at a dog park, whole different demographic coming to use the parks. A heritage village we just opened. we look at where our gaps are and, going back to figuring out how to get into those gaps. How do we get somebody to register for a program, a rental, a membership, whatever it is we look to see how many people we're engaging with from a household perspective. And then we want to keep them there. And so we focus a lot on Net Promoter Score. And so I'm a really big fan of Net Promoter Score, NPS. If anybody hasn't heard about it, Google it. I hate surveys that are 20 questions long. What business decision are you making off of each individual question you have on your survey? NPS, it's a simple, give us a score, tell us why. I was telling Chris earlier, I implemented this at a former agency of mine for a program, summer camp. We went from about 23% response rate, which is a pretty good response rate for surveys, to a 96% response rate because they only had to answer one question. Like, oh, one question? Done.
And what you're really saying is, with my background being real, a little bit of an academic background, is this thing called survey fatigue is very,
Yes.
very, very real. And it seems like every time you put on your email, somebody's asking you for these types of things. I use the story all the time. I fly a lot right now, and United, which is my preferred carrier, they will send me a survey, and it is 30 questions long. Okay.
Oh no.
I'm at
Mm-mm.
120 flights so far this year. Do you think I'm filling that thing out? Okay. The last time I filled that thing out was 5 years ago. And about a month ago, I realized I would see if they've done anything differently. Same damn survey. So to your point, they may be getting 0.5%. And it's probably the halo horn effect. You either did a great job or you did a really, really bad job. And what Kate is doing through this NPS thing is really pushing 90-something%, which is phenomenal. And you're getting just that one shot, which is really all you need. The
This.
question and the question and the why to reduce that fatigue, because we're all on our cell phones, and it's like boom, done. And then maybe, hey, really like the camp activities or the themes.
Yeah.
Boom. So now why you got rated that 9 or 10 from that. One of the things that I look at doing in surveys that Kate and I have been discussing is, at the end of the day, I only really care about 2 questions, even though our surveys are about 5 to 8 questions. Is, did the instructor know my name, and would you come back? Because if you have a 92-95%, we will come back. That means all your customer service is good, the programmatics are good, the facilities are good, all this type of stuff. And what we both joke about is we really should not be asking our consumers, customers, residents, were the bathrooms clean?
That drives me crazy.
That's right. Why does it drive you crazy?
That's baseline. That's baseline. It should be clean. And if they're not, guess what? They're going to tell you on the why. Like, no, I gave you a 3 because the bathrooms were nasty. They're going to tell you're going to get that anyway. And then what I also like about NPS, it's, in Parks and Rec, it's really hard to tell our story to councils and boards and that sort of thing about like, oh no, we're great. Everybody loves us. Okay, we know this. But with NPS, I can now benchmark against Apple, Google, USAA, Southwest Airlines, companies who are really, really well known for their customer experience, and say, well, guess what? This is how we rank against them. It immediately gives, legitimacy behind what you're doing, because you're now like, oh, you're just not the good fun, our former police chief used to call me the CFO, which was the chief fun officer, which I was okay with, but we're just not the fun stuff. Like, we're actually giving great customer experiences to our residents.
Can you explain the plus 100, minus 100 concept?
Sure. So I'm going to go to this one first. So ignore Allen Parks and Rec. Think about your agency. So if I were to ask you today, which I am, how likely are you to recommend insert your agency? Give me a 0 to a 10. And what this does is it takes in all the information. 0 to 6 is considered passive. You have people actively out there talking negative, like, oh, don't do a program with Allen Parks and Rec. It was a bad experience. Your 7 and 8 is considered passive, meaning they're not saying anything bad about you, but they're also not out there talking good about you. But then the 9 and 10, those are your promoters. Those are the ones who are actively out there saying, oh, I had the best experience in that top program or that gym membership or whatever it is. And then we take the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors. Passives get thrown out for a score purpose. It gives you a 200-point range. You go from a negative 100 to a positive 100. So zero, so it's actually a 200-point range. 0 is the middle. That means nobody's talking about you. And so we actually do this with our employees too, on how likely are you to recommend this as a place of employment. It's called Employee Net Promoter Score. And you can get anywhere from a negative score, meaning we have problems, to a positive. So excellent benchmarking is a plus 50. And so we're usually in the 50s range collectively. Now, certain programs or certain facilities are higher, some are lower. Our golf course is always a plus 100. But world class, which that's your Apples, your Googles, that sort of thing, that's a plus 80. So again, you can say, hey, guess what? We're plus 57, and that ranks against all of these other companies and what people are saying about them. So it's great to, that y'all range, 8.7 is the average there. This actually is not converting it to the NPS, but, on average right now, y'all will give yourselves an 8.7, which is passive. So technically those scores would be thrown out and it would only do the detractors versus the promoters.
Well, I would go one more step further than that. Let's just use, if you can go back to that 8.7 real quick, because I think there's some validity in that just on the surface, okay?
Yeah.
Of the question of that 8.7 is, that 8.7 is valid on 12/4, okay, December 4th.
Yes.
What is that comparing to at end of year 2023, end of year 2022, 1, etc., to say, have you grown? Okay, have you evolved? Have you gone up or have you gone down? And then the next question that I say is, say, for example, on the surface, forget the metric, 8.7 out of 10, actually theoretically not bad.
Yeah.
In contrast, if I was at 9.5 last year, the question becomes is what happened? Okay.
Yes.
If I was at 8.1 last year and now I'm 8.7, it's like, hey, there should be a lot of attaboys, but we have to go through another step on customer service, is looking at the why, which will be there, and then actually creating that action plan from the whys, from the data points, to say, how do we continue to move on this journey of customer service excellence, to say, what are some other additional things? They may be high value, they may be low value, low hanging fruit, to really be able to add to the value, add to the experience, so you can continue to push that score closer to that 9-10 number.
Yeah, absolutely. So then kind of taking that next step is, who's your customer? We develop what we call personas. Alex Allen is our persona. But we try to appease everybody, like we talked about. We're trying to get one from every household. But we also need to know at a core, who is our audience? Who's the one who's actually purchasing? Who's the one signing the kids up for camp? Who's the one actually making those decisions? Do they like technology or they don't like technology? Okay, well, if they don't like technology, we better have a paper pencil, way at the senior center for them to do it, And so it's truly digging into like pulling all that demographic information out of all the systems you have and really digging into figuring out who this person is. So that way, as we're developing, baselines and, customer expectations, we're always remembering, for us, it's Alex. Like what would Alex do? Well, Alex wouldn't like it because they had to click 4 times in order to find the rain outline on the website. Okay, let's pull that to the front page then. Let's, maneuver a couple other things around. But really looking at, the website and the click rates, if somebody's having to click 4 times just to find the rain outline, no, that's a bad experience. So
let me ask you this question, Kate. You talk about Alex Allen. Are there more than just Alex Allens in your community?
Absolutely.
That's just one customer, and marketing these days, customer service experience these days isn't a one size fits all. So
Yep.
what are your thoughts about that?
So in a previous city that I worked for, we actually had 5 different personas. We had mom, dad, a grandparent, who lived with them because I was very prominent in that community, to, a high school lacrosse kid. I think you develop, who's your baseline. For us, Alex is our baseline, but then we have 3 or 4 others that we really, okay, we're talking about senior center programming. So let's really hone in on the senior persona and, what do they like or not like? And that's where we always start as our baseline, and then we work up from there. It's not saying that everything's a niche just for that one type, but it just kind of comes back to your basics and understanding, what is our baseline? Our baseline's Alex.
Yeah, and I think that it goes even further than that. That you go to that picture is from the station, which is a beautiful 2 rinks, 2 inline hockey rinks, a skate park, if memory serves me right, the little
Yep.
team center type of thing. Beautiful, beautiful facility. I would even hesitate to guess there's 2 or 3 different user groups and
Mhm.
personalities that are there. And what I'm trying to get for folks to realize in this customer service experience is not a one size fits all, that if we can kind of look who is actually coming through the door, what do they look like, and not necessarily just age or maybe cultural makeup, but one of my favorite words is psychographics. What are their lifestyles? What are their value statements? Are
Yep.
they active? Are they passive? Are they engaged, high level of engagement or low level engagement type of thing? And then we can actually build programs and services around what their needs are. Because if we make this one size fits all, it really is really a challenge. Now, I will say this from a historical standpoint, your guest experience of Alex is really, really cool. Many, many years ago, Johnson County, I don't know if there's anybody on here from Johnson County, found out that their main decision maker was a 35-year-old techno mom.
Yep, I
So
believe that.
I actually think, and really that goes into one of who is using versus who is the decision maker about going
Yes.
program. And
Yep.
I've been trying to work on some data on a session that will probably premiere in 2025 is Generation X, Y, Z as parents and consumers, because those are 2 different things. Here's what I want as a parent, but here's how I want it for myself. And
Yep.
so really there's 6 segments of our customers. And if we're able to craft those experiences, our customer service is going to go higher.
Absolutely. So if you go to the top of the chat, I have a couple fillable forms, and that's really just as we kind of talk through some of these, what are some really actionable things that you can do to help enhance the experience, whether it's in a facility, a program, park, whatever it is. But here's a few kind of audit processes that, I've done. Voice of the customer audit. So a lot of times like, oh yeah, we get a lot of calls about that. Okay, define a lot. Did you get 2, you happen to get 2 in one day, so all of a sudden it's like the worst thing that's ever happened and you got to fix it now? Or did you get 2 over the last, year? And so we actually have done this before where one of the logs that is in the handouts is we actually had the front desk for a week log every single phone call, every single main email, just our, generic email address. What are they calling about? When are they calling? Do we have enough staff to answer the phones at the right time? But what are they actually calling about? I was using the example is when I first got to Allen, day 1 was the day COVID broke out. It was fantastic. So March of 2020, I get here, and we had a reservations coordinator who solely was doing athletic field reservations. And I'm like, why are we doing this? And they're like, well, this is how we do it. This is what we do. And the more we kind of dug into it, we had them do call logs to figure out how many phone calls were coming in, what were they coming in on. We actually went in and we launched the online reservation system that we already owned, but we weren't using it. So, looking at optimizing any type of technology that you're doing. And so we went through that process and we kind of slowly, petered off where I actually was able to take that FTE person, and they're now my IT business system specialist. So it's ironic that my person who got all the phone calls to do reservations is now my IT guy within our department. But we were able to better utilize to do optimizations across all of our platforms because I was able to take a person off just making reservations for baseball in particular.
And Kate, one of the things that I would throw out too is the what you're doing actually can be facilitated greatly. Just if you're just doing paper logs or through an Excel spreadsheet, there's a lot of movement into AI right now where you can identify and put prompts in there and say what are the most pressing issues through that are identified in this log, and it'll say, oh, by the way, and for us for a few years. And we've got 14 pools, so it's a little bit weird, but okay, guys, we're having tons of bees around our trash can. Well, what are we doing to solve that issue? Because if we solve that issue, that's going to address a complaint down the road. And so then we don't have the complaints. We're enhancing the experience so people don't have to battle bees. It sounds really, really stupid, but putting some of those logs into some sort of format, whether it be AI or just going through, here's one
Yep.
bee, here's 2B, here's 3B, probably like what you did before AI really started hitting. But there's
Yeah.
what we're trying to say is that use the tools. Kate used the tools to get better in terms of more enhancing customer experience because you turned from a kind of a manual process to a computer-based process. We can also have the review of this done by a computer too to speed up those processes. So it's not like
Yeah.
all this labor.
So follow me with this. You said a keyword. You said stupid. Uh, so my team, we do meetings that are called "That's So Stupid,"
Yeah.
and they're like the best meeting ever. Literally, the title in the meeting invite says "That's so stupid," and we get different groups of different combinations of team members, and I just sit there and I say, "Okay, on day-to-day basis, what do you do for your job?" And you're like, "That's so stupid. Why do we do this? That's so stupid." Because most of the times when the director or a manager gets in the room and they're starting to ask of like, well, how can we help and what do we need to do? Again, they're thinking Disney level problems. Like I don't want to tell her that I have to crawl under the tables in the back patio of the senior center every night to lock them up. Like, why are you crawling under the tables? They're like, well, we have to lock them up. Alan, we know how to lock up stuff like that. What did one chair maybe disappear 20 years ago? Yeah. And are they probably now? Things like that happen, and all of a sudden you implement a rule that is now affecting staff or a customer. And so we did these "That's So Stupid," and we have this big old long list of things. We're chipping away. We're just fixing things left and right. And staff see the little things. They're like, oh, why do we do this report? What business decision are you making off that? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, stop doing it. So we
Yeah.
do that for the customer side too.
Yeah, there's a lot of credit to that. I can remember when I got here, and a long time ago now, but there was one of our front desk folks who was returning this amount of stacks of checks because we took a deposit for a pavilion. And I'm like, okay. I looked at that. So what do you do every morning, Monday morning? She goes, oh, I spend about 4 hours putting in an envelope, mailing it back or calling them, say, can I rip it up? And that type of stuff. I'm like, what? And then I said to her, I said, well, how many times do we actually cash one of those checks? And the comment was, oh, we never cash checks. So we're collecting all this stuff. We're making people pay $20, $50 in a deposit, hold up their money for a week, maybe a month, depends on, and we're doing that. What? And so you as leaders need to look at it from, again, as I go to Kate, look at Kate with her daughter, from that practice of a resident consumer saying, well, if they're doing that, would I want to do that? I say this all the time. When we're starting to talk about new technologies and all this stuff, my staff members, oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. And I go, well, do you use that technology to purchase on Amazon? On what? Oh, yeah, we do. I'm like, well, why can't we integrate for that process or that streamlined process in our?
Yeah.
So great discussion.
Yeah. The couple pictures I have on this slide. So one, the fence is kind of a bad picture, sorry. But that is our dog park. So we put up holiday decor all through our downtown, Instagram, they light up at night. And so one day I was like, hey, go through a couple of those at the dog park. And they're like, why? I'm like, well, why not? Like the dog park people, they have their own Facebook group. There are, we talk about like raving fans and we want raving fans. Our dog park people are our raving fans. And now they're taking pictures left and right. They're posting it. They're tagging us. They're doing all these things because we threw a couple lights up at the dog park. And then, so it's little things like that. We had to close down one of our aquatic facilities for a couple weeks to do a complete HVAC replacement last year. And, we're about ready to reopen. I'm like, go paint a wall. And they're like, what? Why? We didn't it's HVAC. The walls are fine. Like, go paint a wall. You need to show we just displaced these people for a couple weeks to replace the HVAC. I need them to come back and feel appreciated, feel like we did something for them. So even though the walls didn't need to be painted, we went and painted some walls. It's those little things like that, a couple gallons of paint and some staff time is we had a brand new wall. We did a little flooring redo, but in the grand scheme of things, little things that showed a lot that we cared about them and appreciated them coming back and not going to another gym.
And those details are what your residents see. And we do this a little bit differently in our parks where we've got 93, 94 playgrounds in our community. We will replace 6, 7, 8 playgrounds a year. And sometimes that's the only major renovation that park will see for 15 years. And we used to do nothing, and we would get yelled at by, oh, well, the playground looks great, but the picnic table is a mess.
Yep.
The pavilion needs to be painted and all that type of stuff. And Michelle, our parks project manager, started to say, hey, they're right. We want to turn over this with a major, quote unquote, a major renovation. And we're painting the pavilion, we're painting the trash cans, we're power washing the area. So when the park, because we took that park out of their ability to use for 4, 6 weeks to put the playground in, that park is like brand spanking new, and that really enhances, wow, Parks and Recreation must be doing something right.
We're a big fan of pop-up events, and so we don't do ribbon cuttings, that kind of thing for new playgrounds. But we'll throw an ice cream truck out there and hand out free ice cream for a couple hours, or, have a pop-up concert, or, in your fitness facilities, having pop-up classes. Some people are intimidated to go to a group fitness class, but if you throw a pop-up like, hey, today we're just doing a pop-up class, come check it out. They may be less intimidated to go in because it's not the regulars. They don't have their spots saved and all that kind of thing. They get to talk to the instructor. They get to try something new. So doing pop-up events and activities, either at parks or in facilities, I'm a really big fan of, and think that just helps, again, grow that community engagement and outreach side of things. So
one of the things I'll say about the community engagement is not necessarily on our Facebook sites or what we're hearing from
absolutely, yeah.
people. A lot of it is just being aware of what's going on in your community. I'm a social media person. I don't post a lot, but I review it a lot to see what the community is saying. And I think
Review, I like that. I call it, I'm a stalker.
Yeah,
So
I
I
was
just say I stalk.
I'm looking at what people are saying. We've got all these little neighborhood groups and that type of
Yeah.
stuff. And I love when I see the fact of when they say, oh, well, I'm new to the community. Where do I go for swim lessons? Or I'm new to the community. Where do I go for summer camps? And, when I'm looking at people about our swim lessons, and they're like, hey, listen, you got to go to the township. You got to go to the township. That means we're doing something right. That means
Yep.
through all the stuff that Kate's saying, I'm saying about, what is the experience, the facilities, the experience, the interaction at the front desk is the experience. That's all building to the point where people are raving fans. We've used that word a little bit here, raving fans about your programs, and are willing to jump on Facebook, to jump on Instagram to say, you need to go to the township, you need to go to Allen for this program or that program.
Well, on the flip side, when I've been stalking some Facebook groups, they asked that exact same question about swimming, and we weren't named. This was a couple of years ago. I screenshotted that. I sent that over to our aquatics team, and I said, why aren't they talking about us, guys? And they're like, well, our swim lessons, we sell out. Okay, you may sell out, but you don't have raving fans. You need to start looking at doing things differently. So again, it's not just about profit and loss. It's not just about, selling something out. If they're not out there promoting you and talking positive, then what are we doing? And so that it kind of shook them a little bit, but they quickly transitioned. They made some adjustments, and now we have raving fans. So you just keep that in mind as you're kind of looking at stuff. It's not just about the sellout side. So But, looking at benchmarks, looking at innovation, we talked a lot about AI. There's a ton on AI out there. Looking at data, retention rates, cancellation rates, you have to figure out what's important to you. We could throw out all kinds of data and say, oh, you should, really measure this, this, and this. Okay, for us, we chose those two. We chose NPS and we chose the number of households because that speaks to us. Figure out what is your things and how can you help. You can actually measure it and track it to show growth or to show when you're sliding and you need to make some adjustments. There's a lot of that kind of stuff out there.
For that, Kate, is you've chose 2 benchmarks or 2 data points. You don't have 20 data points because then you're just trying to collect it and make sure that
No.
you're saying
Yeah.
these are the 2 that we're going with, and there's pros and cons of that, and that's fine. But it makes it so much easier for your staff to get around that this is what we're doing. This is because my previous boss was a great guy, but he wanted data on everything. But if all we're doing is collecting data, we're not analyzing the data, we're not interpreting the data, and then creating that action plan for actually growth and development and improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the hyper focus to really make sure we're focusing on those 2 and we're doing those 2 really, really well.
Absolutely.
Just as kind of we wrap up, just want to, talk about the inclusion side of things. We definitely have a big focus on inspiring inclusion. Our vision statement is inspiring your best life. And we really also look at this from the lens of inclusion and making sure we're inclusive in everything we do with a variety of different things. So, and then just as far as like the implementation side for your team, we have what we call squads. It's a long story. We have our strategic plans, our playbook. It goes back to Chris, what you're talking about earlier about having that front desk people being able to make decisions and trying to bring down the layers because we have 500 staff members. And so to kind of help with that, we develop squads, which are teams who come together kind of on that coordinator level, supervisor level. They rally together, one person from each of the facilities. They come together and they tackle guest experience and they come and they recommend things to the senior management, but they're the ones making the calls. They're the ones making the decisions. I lead the innovation squad, but we have different squads in all the different areas and kind of roadmap showing to really help push that down to the lowest level we possibly can. And then making sure we're doing trainings, that's my daughter, the one that may have been staged a little bit in that picture. Those are her friends. My daughter's in the middle. But we opened a new rec center. We have all these new birthday party attendants. They didn't know how to cut a cake. Like, it's the easy, stupid things. Going back to that's so stupid. It's like 16-year-olds, they don't know how to cut a round cake to maximize it for the number of attendees. So we did a cake cutting class for our staff. But it's looking at those big things and the little things like cutting a cake for a birthday party and making sure we can do it well and it doesn't end up in a big old pile of goop at the end. So really thinking through what are those things that you can do. So hopefully there's at least 5 actionable things that you've jotted down on some of your little handouts that you feel you can actually do either tomorrow, in the next 90 days, whatever it is, but ton of information hopefully thrown at you and got you thinking a little differently.
All right, Mike, that was a whirlwind. Great. I love the conversation that Kate and I were having on the background of her slides, and hope the folks who are still with us, about 62 of you guys who pretty much stayed the entire time. I was tracking that, see data points to track on how we were doing. But it's always a privilege to be able to catch up with Kate and what she's doing in Allen. It's a great department northeast of Dallas, Texas. Go take a look at her action guide and some of her program guide and some of her facilities. Jump on her Facebook and actually jump on her LinkedIn. She is so positive about her team. She calls them the A team. And if you really want to see somebody who's really an advocate for her team, she's the one to really model as well.
Is that A for Alan?
Yeah.
It is.
See what you did there. That's wonderful.
It is.
Normally I would try to share some of the things that I have learned today, but unfortunately I had to scoot off and be somewhere else. So all that's left for me to do is just to thank you for your time today. both Kate and Chris as presenters and also everyone who joined today. It means a lot that you choose to spend some of your time with us, and thank you for sharing what you do.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.